What's going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to another episode of Louder Than Words. I'm your host, Caleb Curl.
And I'm Tony Gaskins.
So, Tony and I were having a conversation about the world shifting today and thinking about dating and relationships. And specifically, we were talking about waiting till marriage. Is abstinence really worth it? Are people actually doing it? What's the difference between a woman waiting and a man waiting? The terms, like, there's so many different nuances with that in today's modern world where it's kind of like old school and nobody wants to do that anymore. And so, Tony, what are your thoughts on waiting till marriage? It's something that you and I have had some private conversations about, but I want to hear your perspective to gain some wisdom on it.
Well, you know what? I feel like, honestly speaking, it is a uphill battle. And I'm out here crying in the wilderness, which is unfair because I didn't wait. It wasn't a thing when we didn't have YouTube when I was dating. And so even if you went to church, everybody in the church was in fornication. All the young people was in fornication. It wasn't a message that was other than your pastor, and even the pastors didn't really talk on it. They didn't harp on it because you got 52 sermons a year. You're not gonna dedicate a lot of them to abstinence
Right.
because a lot of people in the church was already married. So you're not
Yeah.
doing it for the young kids. So today, because we have podcasts, because we have YouTube, because the landscape is different, this message of abstinence is really circulating.
Yeah.
And I thought men were lying when they said some women didn't want to wait. But now I'm finding out that that is true. That there are a lot of women who don't want to wait. And that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. And the only thing I could see is just the manipulation of the own body. I see some women on podcasts, they're promoting, women getting to know their body
Yeah.
and stimulating themselves. And I feel like that is leading to an unquenchable desire. And that's what's making it hard for people to wait.
Yeah, I agree, bro. It's even on my own journey, I've struggled with my abstinence, but now being in a place where I'm really pursuing purpose and being intentional, I've been able to really deep dive and one really study and research what sex is. And really understanding that at its basis, sex is really for us just to procreate. Out of all of the animals within the animal kingdom, we're the only ones that just mate for pleasure and sensuality, right? All other animals, not to say that we particularly are animals, but if we look at nature, we're the only ones that just do it so frequently and only for pleasure. Every other species does it out of procreation, right? That is the end goal. And I think it's just deception that we've fallen into. And I've said this before, but man, if I could go back, knowing what I know now, man, I would hold on to my virginity. I understand how precious it is when you're so young and just, full of everything and just listening to your homies. Like you just want to experience and get out there. But man, once you turn that corner, it's a forever struggle, and now I feel like I've been able to like somewhat really get a grasp on it because I've gone through my ebbs and flows with abstinence, but now I'm really committed to it because I have a full understanding. Because in the church you just hear, don't have sex, wait until marriage, but why, right? Not really understanding soul ties and how you attach yourself to somebody and how that spirit gets on you, and then you sleep around with multiple people, and then you just got all this filth on you, and it's just so much to it. But I've personally had situations like on my journey of like, okay, I'm trying to be abstinent but then also trying to date. You're right, there are women today like that are speaking against it. They don't want to wait, even Christian women. I've run across Christian women who say they love the Lord in church every Sunday, in small group twice a week, and everything, and still want to bust it wide open. And again, I've been there too, right? But what I've realized for myself as a man that's committed to it, I got to be committed to it for me, and I got to lead a woman, right? Because I have had situations where I really like a girl. We get to that conversation about wait until marriage. Everything else is good, preferences, standards, like we click in on all fours. And then we get to that, and then they say, like, I don't want to wait till marriage. Like I want to make sure that I got that chemistry and compatibility with my partner. And then at that point in time, I'm like Adam in the garden. I'm either going to give in to that fruit and say yes, even though I know what my commandments are from God, or I'm going to say no and stick to my own. And that's been the hardest thing for me personally in this phase of my life and trying to be intentional is I do run across that. And in those moments, like, man, I really like this girl. And your mind can start to kind of go to a place, well, let me just see, well, let me, because you want her so bad. I've had to learn to want God and my purpose and righteousness more than I want that woman, and vice versa. I think women gotta be in that same boat when the roles are reversed. But bro, that's been the hardest thing for me, and I think it's just we've become so over sexualized. We all have spiritually transmitted diseases that we're not clear from, right? And so the more a man sleeps with more women and vice versa, women with men, those spirits are on you, and we become over sexualized. And so we seek more of sexual compatibility and chemistry than we do spiritually being equally yoked in today's age.
Yep. And you said something, and it made me think about how like so many people don't understand chemistry and how chemistry can be so deceptive because if we meet a woman and the man says, "Hey, we need to see," or the woman says, "We need to see if we are sexually compatible. We need to see what that chemistry is like in the bed." The
Yeah,
thing about it is the chemistry could be bad because you don't really know each other yet. You a month in, 2 months in, 3 months in, even
yeah,
6 months in, you
yeah,
still don't know each other and you don't have real feelings. And the largest sexual organ is the brain. So when the brain is into it and you are in love, half of the work is done. And me being married 17 and a half years, I'm still learning my wife's body. She's
wow,
still learning my body. Like we
yeah,
still are not 100% all the way, like, because I'm a man. I'll never know a woman's body the way she knows her body. And she'll never know my body the way I know my body. Then if, and this is the thing, what a lot of people don't understand, doing all that stuff with yourself is not, I don't want to say it's not normal. We have normalized it, but it's not normal.
yeah,
Meaning it's not what we're supposed to do. When you think about it, you're not supposed to be doing that by yourself.
right,
And so, and if you do that, you have 24 hours a day to get to know you. You can't expect another human being to understand every part of your body and how it works because every single person's body is a little bit different.
yeah,
And so that's what's happening. So we actually being lied to and deceived about chemistry and compatibility. And so people are adding to their body count and yet and then thinking, oh, well, we should end this because we're not compatible sexually, but you're actually not compatible sexually because you don't love each other. You're not in love. It hasn't even been enough time for you to really like each other.
right,
So now you've just added to your body count. You got another spiritually transmitted disease. You may have a sexually transmitted disease. The woman maybe has conceived and have to go to the clinic. And so
yeah,
you did all this and you got nothing to show for it, but you're not compatible, and that's because you don't even understand what it takes to be compatible. So
yeah,
that's the thing. And when you think about it, like what you said, I've been saying that for a while, and it'll be like a lot of women, just because my audience is a lot of women, but I'm sure men feel the same way. They'll be like, oh, it's not just for procreation, it's for pleasure and all of that too. But that's not 100% true. I believe we have been lied to, we have been misled,
right,
and that's what the adversary has used to create sexual immorality to make
yep,
us think that something that is for a specific purpose is also for our pleasure, which it is pleasurable, and we should receive pleasure with our spouse,
right,
and so that it keeps us out of sin.
yep,
But that's not what it should be when you're not married.
Yeah.
You ain't supposed to get pleasure from it when you're not married, because you are in that sin being
Yeah.
not being married.
And it takes you out of alignment, right? Because as a man, I now understand if I sleep with a woman that I'm not married to, my body has committed to her, but my spirit knows that, man, it's just this ain't my wife, you know? So I'm out of sync. And so when I'm out of sync, I'm not in purpose because pleasure has overridden that alignment there, you know? And that's the biggest thing that I see. Everything in marriage, even in marriage, I think everything should be in a form of moderation. I think in America, or just in the state of the world in general, we overconsume. We always say moderation, moderation, but how many people actually exercise moderation, you know? But the biggest thing I see, especially with our men, that it is the biggest form of attack against men. Even when you think in the story about Samson and Delilah and like how much energy Samson wasted on women, right? There is so much power when we can focus and understand that that is literally a piece of ourselves. That is a part of our creativity. That is our part of every DNA structure in our body. All of our minerals and nutrients are leaving us to go into a woman to create another life force, right? And if we're constantly depleting ourselves just on a biological level, like we are going to be weak. We're not going to be able to be men that are clear and focused and know where it is that we're supposed to be going and doing. That's why we have such a purpose problem today. We're all dating from a place of compatibility and resume dating and the body, but spiritually we're so off track because we do not know what our purpose is, you know? And that's the thing for me as I reflected on this. I'm like, man, I no longer want to be this type of man where I'm sleeping with women and I don't have a ring on my finger or hers and knowing that I'm committed to her, right? I don't want to keep supporting condom brands. I don't want to keep buying plan Bs. I don't want to keep waking up and question like, man, did I pull out fast enough? Like, am I gonna have a baby? When's the last time she been checked? Did I get checked? Like, it's a lot of stress and worry that comes after the fact, right? In that heat of that moment, that devil in the brain is like, man, yeah, just go ahead and do it. You know, I might even sip a little alcohol to get a little liquid courage and to use as an excuse to go ahead and do this when I know I shouldn't do this. Right. And then later on, have all of these things that I got to question and deal with. It ain't worth that stress and like being in my psyche no more, you know, not to say that it ain't hard, but just it is so much that comes with it that we just really don't understand. Even the connection. I've had women say, and then I fell for it in the past. Said like, no, no, it's just sex. Like we'll be okay. And then all of a sudden, you know, because as a guy, I'm like, man, I could just do this and not be attached, or at least that's what I think. But understanding the female body and the male body and how when that release happens, oxytocin is released in a woman's brain and that becomes an attachment mechanism, right? And so now it was before we did this was like, now it's just gonna be sex, but there's no such thing. There's no such thing as laying down with somebody and coming out unscathed, whether it's spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. You're going to come up with some form of baggage. And if you have not committed to this person as your husband or wife, you're taking a major risk. You won't even take a leap of faith to start the business, but you'll sleep with a stranger within 3 dates or the first night. Come on now. You know, been there, done it. Right. And it's not acting like I'm above it, but just thinking about it differently now as I've matured as a man and really understanding my body and understanding how important my semen is and understanding that the more a man releases consistently, the more his body produces estrogen, right? And it's so deep, bro. But yeah, I'm gonna let you have the mic on that.
But you know, I want you to expound on that too, because I was just about to say, and it's a very transparent moment, but I want to share this for the singles who are abstaining. But my wife and I, our marriage is the best it has ever been. Like her energy, her attitude, her mentality is the best I have ever seen in my 18 years of knowing her, 17 and a half years, 19 years knowing her. It is the best. And we literally may have sex once a week at the most. Maybe a lot of times it feel like once every 2 weeks. And the conversation is so stimulating. And we're so in love and we're so at peace. And what I've noticed too, like I've been going to the gym like once a week. And look, I'm holding more muscle definition now because I have semen retention.
Yep. Yeah.
And then I'm getting online and I'm talking on a video for an hour, 2 hours with no
Yep.
notes,
Yep.
with nobody to talk back and forth with, just the clarity, the mental clarity, and
Yeah.
then the business ideas that I'm having. And I'm like, this crazy. And then when I thought about it, I said, okay, every day my mind is saying, you need to have sex, you need to have sex, you need to have sex. But then when I listen to my body says, I'm good. Like,
Yep.
I don't need a release. Like, and so what I found is that being sexually active before marriage, it planted a seed and it took control of my spirit, and it deceived me to believe that I need sex multiple times a week. And so my mind keeps saying, you need sex, you need sex, you need sex. So be mad with your wife, like get onto your wife, like guilt trip her into sex, like do this, do this, do this. But then I become one with myself and elevated to my higher self in the sense of like processing my thoughts, processing my feeling, processing what my body is feeling. And I'm like, I don't want to have sex.
Mm.
Like it's literally just a gyration of the hips. Like it's a pumping of the hips. I
Yep.
get a release. The release feels false. It doesn't bring me any closer to my wife in reality because I get way closer to her looking in her eyes and having a conversation
Yep.
and laughing with her and driving around doing errands. So making love is quality time.
Yep.
Having sex is fulfilling lust. And you can express love through sex, but you can express love through physical touch. You can express love through laughter and conversation. So, man, I have really in marriage been more abstinent than I have when I wasn't married.
Wow.
And I have seen the benefits of abstinence, meaning having sex when you absolutely need to have sex.
Yeah.
Like when the emotions and the conversation and the timing, when everything aligns and you come together with your spouse, there aren't words for it. But when you force it, when one person isn't feeling good, when one person is tired, when you in a rush, it almost like it steals from your relationship instead of adding to it
Yeah.
because it feels inappropriate, it feels disrespectful, it feels inconsiderate. And man, I have learned so much about that stronghold that sex has that I'm freeing myself of it even now, still. Like even last night, even this morning, my mind just thinking about sex, sex, sex. But then when I listen to my body, I'm like, I don't want to have sex. Like it doesn't, it's not even gonna do anything but fill my wife up, with a substance that she got to ride around, go about her day with that substance coming out of her all day.
Yeah.
And what do we get from it?
Yeah.
Because what do we have to prove? We already in love. We already until death do us part. So what do we have to prove with that? And so I know that's gonna be hard to understand for a lot of people, but and it's hard to say and explain because it is being very transparent. But I want people to understand that, like, especially when you get married and you have kids, like sex becomes, unless you're a nympho or you addicted and you don't have self-control, sex becomes so low on the totem pole of priorities because it's like by the time you get done driving all day, working all day, dealing with kids all day, it's like, man, you want to kick back, laugh, talk, have some conversation, hold hands, and go to sleep.
Yeah. Yes, bro. Man, I'm so glad to hear you say that. And that's something that I love about these talks. And I'm glad these are conversations we have privately, but I'm glad we doing the podcast this way because that really helped me whenever you helped me to understand. Because as a single man, especially when I was younger, I'm like, man, I get married, I'm be doing it every day, 3, 4 times a day. I'm gonna pull up to a job, but that's not reality. But that just shows that, like, one, it shows the male mind, like how often it's on our brain, right? And if we're not careful, that will take up so much of our psyche. Like we'll go, man, a man will drive 2, 3, 4 hours just to have 10, 20 minutes worth of pleasure, right? Like it's amazing, like just the power and the control that it has. That's why, they say, a woman, what's between a woman's legs has power. To an extent, that's true. If you are not on a foundation with God and you're allowing God to lead you, like you said, your higher self to be clear. I personally believe, and from things that I've read, the longer that a man holds onto his semen, those nutrients travel up and down his spinal cord to his brain, and that's where that brain clarity comes from. Some people may not believe that, but I've noticed for myself, my skin gets clearer, my ability to be able to communicate and just be able to flow and articulate my thoughts get so much better. It's amazing. And what I've realized is the average person who is actively having sex that's not marriage, they treat sex like they do their paycheck. As soon as they get that paycheck, and it goes right back out, and you're constantly depleting and leaving paycheck to paycheck and body to body and person to person, and then questioning like, man, why can't I find any good women today, or why can't I find any good men? Because you're operating in a space of lust, right? You can't even think about your purpose clearly, so you're only going to think about and attract people that are just as equally lost and depleted as you are. And then it has been a beautiful journey for me, and I encourage the brothers that I have mastermind calls with each week. We were talking about this week, like, bro, like, stay strong. And the like the rise in dirty movies and how many people are secretly addicted to doing that is a hidden temptation that a lot of people just brush by and are quiet about, because it's just you and God. No, nobody else has. You don't have to worry about, or a man or woman coming out saying, no, we slept together, this or that, because it's just you and yourself. But that's another, big thing too, that's taken a lot of people in a stronghold, is people. It's just so easy. You got this phone on you at all times, and you in the mood, you're like, man, let me just, rub one out really quick. And a lot of men today are struggling with depression and anxiety, but not understanding that it has to do with that. You're constantly having to release those nutrients or leaving your body that are vital to keeping your testosterone high, keeping your confidence boosted, keeping you at a healthy state. So that's why you're so anxious, and that's why you're constantly depressed. But I love that we're talking about this today, because it is so important. It's been tough for me in this phase of my life. I'm realizing the importance of myself as a man to really lead myself and stay committed to the covenant that me and God have. Because I do, like I said, I do run across women that, say they love the Lord and this or that. But when I bring up like, hey, I want to wait till marriage, though I've never successfully done it, that's still the goal of where I'm trying to go. And I'm serious about it. Where I fell before with it was binding myself to somebody and then getting tempted, and then allowing either myself or them to lead me, versus now I get that out of the way first. And I like to ask that question within the first 3 or 4 dates, like, hey, how do you feel about waiting until marriage? And if a woman says like, no, like, I'm not with that, hey, we can go our separate ways. Versus old me would allow the woman to lead me, but I'm understanding the place and purpose and positioning of a man to be able to lead himself in those moments of temptation. But I'm seeing just like this huge wave on the internet where just a lot of people are talking about the chemistry and the compatibility, but we're just so ignorant to what sex really is and how powerful it really is. And I think that's why so many of us are being led into delusion, because we're constantly watching these dirty movies online, and so we're thinking that that's supposed to be our reality, and not realizing how minuscule the portion of life is. If you're gonna be with somebody till death do you part, as you get older, yeah, you still probably do it, but it's not going to be as frequent when you were in your youth. I think that's why the Bible talks about a man finding his wife in his youth and enjoying her bosom, enjoying her in that season, because seasons are going to change. What if something comes up and you can't be sexually active with this person? Are you going to leave them at that point in time? Like, we're so focused on the wrong things today, and we're both sides are caught in the delusion, because we are not our best selves. We're not pursuing purpose. We're all stuck in a place of pleasure if we're not careful.
Caleb, hey, listen, hey, right there where you at. I want you to keep going. I want you to keep going, because listen, what you tapping into at 30 years old, it's not seen, it's not common. And see, Think about the season that you're in your life. I am willing to venture to say that there are not two men on the face of this planet having conversations this deep on a podcast, back and forth, with no producer, with no note cards, with no bullet points. Think about it.
Hmm.
There are not
Yeah.
two men on the face of this earth having conversations on this level without any prompts. But think
Yeah.
about the space that you and I both are in, semen retention.
Yeah.
And you more so than me because you don't have a wife. So if I get to a place where I feel like I need a release, then I can say, "Hey, babe, hey, need me some." You got to be like, "Okay, Lord, I need to go lift some weights, go climb a mountain,
Yeah.
something like that." And so for
Yeah.
me, if I'm being honest with myself, I literally may feel that way, like in a real way, one day a week, like in a real way. And I remember reading a study that said there are no scientific proven benefits of more than one orgasm a week. That one orgasm a week has shown that it can be beneficial to your body, to your health, but no more than that
Yeah.
does it add any health benefits. And then I've noticed too that it really may be like once every 2 weeks. And then based on like a woman's body and like when her cycle is coming and all of that, then a woman may be more aroused at certain points. So I've noticed being married that I will have 1 week out of the month that I'm feeling like a bunny rabbit.
Yeah.
And I'll notice with my wife that it may be 1 week out of the month or something like that, or a few days out of the month that she is a little more touchy and a little more, needing a little more closeness. But what
Yeah.
I've also noticed is that the man and the woman's body is totally different. So when my wife is feeling, aroused, I'm not. And when I'm feeling aroused, she's not.
Yeah.
And so that's where in marriage comes the submitting one to another and loving one another as you love yourself, so to speak, to where if I'm not feeling it, but she's coming on to me, I'm not going to deny her. And if she's not feeling it and I'm coming on to her, she's not going to deny me. And
Yeah.
that's when it comes into dying out to self. But
Yeah.
if you notice when you dating and you in fornication, both of you are always wanting it and always ready, and you ready and willing to go at any time. And that's that trap of sin.
Yep.
That's that deception of the delusion, to where how are you always wanting it and you want to do it 2 3 4 times a day. And that's because that sin is like a stimuli. It's like it feels rewarding. And I
Right.
remember that when me and my wife was in fornication, it might be 2 3 4 times a day. And but now that we can do it 3 4 times a day without any conviction, any consequence, it's like we good. Like we rather laugh and talk and run errands and all of that.
Yeah.
And so that's something that where you at and what you thinking, as I'm listening to you and me knowing the space that you're in, I'm hearing the other men in my head who are not in the space that you're in, and I'm listening to their conversation and it's so low level. It sounds like they bumping their gums, and it sounds like you giving a doctoral dissertation to get your doctorate. But guys that I know who are in fornication, they sound like babbling fools. Now that I'm making the comparison in my mind. And so that hit me.
Yeah, I think it's purpose, bro. Like I've never been so serious about my purpose in this phase of life, and I think about Jesus, right? Jesus never had sex. From what we know in the context of the Bible, Jesus never had sex. But to think about that as well, the Apostle Paul saying it's better to be like me and to not married, and you're not able in the Bible. It's written in a way to where everybody can relate, so you're not going to the depths, but it's revealing, right? But to be able to think about that, like, wow, like Jesus had all his nutrients. Paul had all his nutrients from a point in time, and so that enlightens you. It brings you closer to God because you're less attached to things of this world. Those cravings, you can go on to the next level and not be stuck. Life to me is like a video game. And for me, I've gone around certain patterns so many different times that even now, when I'm tempted to sleep with a woman, I play it out in my head because I'm like, Caleb, you've gone this part of the video game before. You already know how it's going to end. You're gonna, as soon as you know have your release, you're gonna be ready to go, and then you're gonna beat yourself up for 3 days, right? Because you're going, one, you're depressed, but you got conviction. You know better, right? Like how long are you going to be led by what's between your legs before you really commit and allow God to lead your life? You've gone through this 100,000 times. Why? You keep taking a stupid pill, you know? And for me, I'm like, this just don't even logically make sense. So I play this scenario out in my head. I'm just like, nah, I'm good. You know, that's why I prefer like this phase of life to live a little bit more of a lonely or isolated life and keep people like you around who I talk to, like, hey, bro, like this the girl I'm talking to, this what I'm going through and experiencing, to keep that accountability because it is hard to do by yourself. And honestly, bro, to take a quick tangent, my favorite thing about being intimate with a woman is the pillow talk. To be able to open up emotionally and give a woman my mind. It hurts to sleep with a woman and know that I can't trust her with my emotions, but I gave her my body. I might potentially have given her my child, right? I might potentially be attached to her the rest of my life. My spirit is now on her and vice versa. You know, I've become aware of that when I've laid down with a woman and I see her change and her characteristics and mannerisms become my own and vice versa. Like sex is a sacred exchange, but we don't think about it that deep. We just think about, man, are we compatible? The chemistry, how often we're going to be able to do it. That no judgment to people that are there, been there, done that, but that is a low level. And I'm encouraging you all to climb above that and understand that it's more to it. When you let go of pleasure, God can give you purpose in your life. And that opens a new door, a new way of thinking, a new outlet for your life that you never even knew that you had access to. But that's why we are here. To be fruitful and multiply means more than to be able to lay down and go in between somebody's legs. It's so much deeper than that. You know, can I lead you? Can I impart some wisdom onto you? Can I teach you? That's going back to, you know, that pillow talk. That as a man, that's what I'm craving. I'm craving a woman that I can give a piece of myself to, my rib to. I can pour into you and give you the wisdom, the knowledge, the game that I've received in 30 years of life, you know, to really pour into somebody, you know. But
Mhm.
if I can't lead you past the bedroom, or I can't lead you to say, hey, I want to wait till marriage, and I just know you're not for me. And one of the best pieces of encouragement I got one homeboy out of all my homeboys that got married, and him and his wife waited till marriage. And this was a homeboy that we used to while out together when we was in college. And to see him now allowing God to lead his life, he said, bro, he's like, man, it's so worth the wait, bro. He said, man, it's nothing like having sex with your wife. And every time that you lay down with her, it gets better and better and better because you love her, versus the old mindset. You want a different body every night. You want to see how this one feel. You want to this one's body shape, you know, and you get stuck in this enslaved state of mind. But he's like, man, when it's your wife and God is there, it's a level of peace. You don't got to get up and put your clothes up and hurry up and run out the door because you don't feel emotionally safe with this woman. This is your wife. There's a covenant between you and her, and God is the foundation, you know. And so that's what encourages me now, and just being self-aware, paying attention to my clarity, paying attention to my purpose. And when I run across situations in dating where or somebody's not compatible, or they don't want to follow my lead and wait until marriage, I'm no longer like, man, I really like this girl. Let me falter. Let me just eat a piece of the fruit. Like, no, like I've already been there, done that. Like my purpose and my call is more important than pleasure. Even if I'm single the rest of my life, that purpose fulfills me. Purpose fills me up. Purpose is rejuvenating. Without anybody else or anything or any substance outside of myself, God is filling my cup up. My cup runneth over. I'm ready to spill and splash into another woman's life, not detract and become dry and thirsty once again, you know?
Mhm. And you know what? You said something because when you say purpose fills you up, it reminded me of when my wife told me, she was like, I was in this space and I'm like, man, baby, we need to have sex more. We need to have sex more. And she said, to be honest with you, she said, I thought we were having sex because she was like, to me, when we're laughing and we're joking, that feels like sex to me. She said, when we spend time together, that feels like sex to me. And in that conversation, I learned that the highest state of mind for a woman is not sex. That a woman feeling secure, feeling seen, feeling loved, feeling heard, feeling protected is the highest state for her in a relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas men, we've been tricked and deceived to believe that the highest state of living in a relationship is the sexual act, and that the greatest form of love and respect from a woman to a man is her giving him her body. And
Yeah.
we've been tricked to believe that as men. And I saw this couple that was online and they're like, I think they're Christians, but they're like have like a marriage ministry, and they're saying they were like, you need to have sex every day. It was like every day we focused on having sex. And when I looked at them, what I saw was like, I saw a man or a woman. I can't tell who's leading the other one, but I saw somebody who had become addicted to a release from porn and
Mm,
got into a marriage and now has convinced their partner that this is a non-negotiable in a marriage, and
wow.
that it is the key to connection, and it is the key to chemistry, and it is the key to longevity in marriage. And you've never been married, but you hit on something that I try to help people understand all the time, is that it is so easy for something to happen in your life that you can never have sex again. Like I've seen people have strokes in their 40s, in their 50s, but
Yeah.
you're supposed to live, if you're going to live till you're 90. Like my wife's family, her grandmother on her dad's side died at 90 years old. Her grandmother on her mom's side is like 90 right now and still living.
Wow.
Her grandma on her dad's side had a knee surgery at 90, and that's kind of what led to her passing away. Her body just didn't recover from this knee surgery, so she never left the hospital. She went for the surgery and never left.
Wow.
And God rest her soul. But her sister, the grandmother's sister, is like 95 or 99. So she would have been living had she not done that knee surgery. And so that tells me, like, if I'm 40 years old and my body already as a healthy 40-year-old doesn't require sex more than one time a week, what is my body going to require at 60?
Right. Right.
What is my body going to require at 70? Like, I'm going to be trying to see France and, different parts of Africa
Yeah.
versus worrying about an orgasm. And we have to figure out a way to make messages like this. We might need to start producing PSAs and just 30 seconds long to make messages like this to go viral, so that people could understand we have been turned into sexual slaves. Like
Yes.
we have become a slave to an orgasm. And
Yes.
it does not increase your income. It does not increase your knowledge. It does not increase your life expectancy. We we
Yeah.
we have been deceived.
Yes. And bro, that's why most men make the majority of their wealth after the age of 40, because you slow down, your wisdom your wisdom and maturity for the most part should pick up, or you're like, man, like there's more to this. I need to focus, right? I need to really hunker down. I need to narrow my mind into one thing. But that's why most men, Warren Buffett, I think, made the most of his money after like 55, if not
It's
older
really
than that.
after 50. It's really after
Yeah.
50. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But man, it's we again is that's why we got to have these talks, and that's why we need elders. That's why we need mentors. We need somebody to give us game.
Talk about that, bro. Tell me your understanding of, like, why do you think most men make the majority of their money after the age of 50? If you had to make sense of that fact or stat, why do you think that is?
Just based off of what I know, and just My observation would be that your testosterone probably starts to level out, but you still have a logical male mind, and so you just really think about things from a logical perspective and not just feelings and emotions. You really start to allow wisdom to take over, I think, and just like your mind goes to a different level. Again, I don't think women understand how often procreation is on the male mind, and especially in the modern world where sex sells. So everything that is marketed to both men and women has something to do with sex, right? And so I think when you get to a certain level, like you've done it so much, but then also chemically, your body is starting to change and alter. So a man can focus more, a man can stay consistent on one thing versus when we're younger, we're full of vitality and energy and we're bouncing all over the place and we're being marketed to so much that we see this opportunity, that girl, this girl. And if our sex life will dictate every other portion of our life. If we have a scattered sex life and we jump from thing to thing to thing, you show that you cannot commit with your body. How can your spirit and mind ever commit to one thing and allow compound interest to make you successful in that lane, right? You become more defiled and give over to debauchery. Even thinking about today, I've heard more women kind of talk about running a red light when a woman is on that time of the month and like still craving sex. We are so off kilter with nature and women really knowing their body, men really knowing their body, even being able to define what a woman is in this age, right? We are so deceived, and so the younger we are, the dumber we can be and stay stuck in if we don't attach ourselves to elders and older people that teach us and show us the right way and have a foundation on God. We become more animal like. Again, I said a while back that inside of every man there is God and there's a dog. The dog has to be trained and God has to be unleashed. A dog will go sleep and lay down with anything that's in heat roaming the streets. A dog will hump a pillow. A dog will do anything to seek pleasure. A dog will eat its own vomit. Like many of us, if we're not careful, we got that in us, right? Our biggest battle is the devil within ourselves, not outside of ourselves, right? So we got to get a hold of that. We got to get a hold of our lower carnal nature, or we'll forever be led by that, led down into debauchery. But I think as men get older, we rise naturally up to our higher self, and we start to put things at bay. There, my dad always say, the young man is strong, but the old man knows the way. That wisdom, those gray hairs that come in, it shows wisdom and time and experience, right? And you start to see things from a different perspective, as the old folks say, hey, just keep living. Keep living. You may not see it right now. Just keep living. You'll understand, later on. And so I think that's what it is. We get wiser. And then, especially at a young age, if you've been able to attach yourself to a woman that produces purpose in your life, you've been able to transform and go through the different phases. And then you enter a new phase and level of love. Y'all seen each other go through maybe a man's testosterone going down, maybe your wife going through menopause. You've seen this woman give birth to your children. You've seen her body change. And so the love just transform, and it's like wine, and it gets better and better and better from the people like yourself and other men that I've talked to. It changes. And so what you value about yourself changes. You're not as focused on pleasure. I think just even naturally, even somebody that drinks at an early age, by the time you get to 50, you no longer crave to want to get drunk because you've experienced hangovers and the aftermath of what over consuming a certain substance or indulging certain things brings you. So I think it's just natural maturation from my perspective. And I think also just it's talked about in certain books like Think and Grow Rich, sexual transmutation. You begin to realize that this is really your creative force, that God gave you this seed. We're here to plant seeds in every form and facet of our life, and we need our seeds. We don't just want to scatter it. We want to be fruitful. We want to plant these seeds and ideas of business and infrastructure in places that are actually going to produce results.
Hmm. And you know what, bro? And not to, I don't know how this gonna sound, but you needed this connection. That meaning the connection that we have created because you 30 years old. And without a connection where you have, where you could see the other side and where you have accountability, like, and not just accountability in private on a phone call, but accountability publicly.
Yeah.
Like this right here to me represents stewardship of where the man with the gray hair can talk to the man with no gray hair, and our minds could be elevated through communication, through this conversation and connection. But also, because I noticed when you said the elder, you are more of an elder than a lot of men who are 50, 55 years old, because they've never had connection and conversation with accountability. Their lower self has been reinforced. And I
Mm.
see women say it all the time: Tony, these men 55, 60 years old still playing games, still playing boyhood, childhood games. And I'm
Yeah.
like, are you serious? So with age does not come wisdom, unless with age comes accountability and the willingness to learn and to grow and to change. Because there are men, and I'm thinking about this, there are podcasters who are my age, who are 10 years older than you, but they're not thinking or talking how you talking, because the people who are in their life that's 50 years old, 55 years old, are reinforcing their carnal nature. The grown boy in them is being reinforced. So they're not growing and evolving and maturing. They're being comforted in their fornication. They're being comforted in their lower self, in their weakness, and they're not being challenged and held accountable and told, hey, you can do this, you can grow, you can go to the next level. Hey, let me tell you what this is like over here. So, and let you know you wasting your time over there. You need to get over here as soon as you can. And like what you said, your homeboy told you, like he has climbed that mountain and he done seen the other side, and he said, hey, Caleb, listen, this way better when you making love to your wife. And I look at it like that: the difference between a soda and wine. And with a soda, once you take that cap off, you got to drink it, or in 24 hours, it's going to be flat.
Wow.
But with wine, it's like the longer you let it sit, and even if you take the cap off and then you put the stopper in there, but the longer you let that wine sit, then the better it's supposed to get. And that's what I kind of look at with intimacy with my wife and I. It's kind of like I have this internal like meter. And with every conversation, it gets higher. With every laugh, with every smile, with every touch, it gets higher and higher and higher. But along the way, I want to have sex at every level. But I realize if I have sex right here, it's not going to be as rewarding and fulfilling and feel the way it'll feel with the connection if I let these days continue to stack. If I let making love to the mind continue to stack, so that when we actually make love to the body, we have so many days, so many interactions, so many transactions that have been deposited, that when we come together, both of us are ready to explode. Both of us are ready to express love in this way,
Wow.
versus just as soon as we get a little bit of fill up, we release it. We release it. We
Yeah.
release it. And you don't allow it. You don't allow them days to stack to where when you come together, it's not a lose win. It's a win-win, because both of you are ready to express in that way, because you've expressed several times in all the other ways.
Yeah.
And also, bro, I want you to take us on home and close us out, because what just hit me is the men who watching this and fornicating, their mind not gonna be able to. They ain't gonna be able to last with us for an hour, and the women too,
Yeah.
because if you are having those daily releases, you emptying, in your words, you emptying all your nutrients. You
Yeah.
emptying all your vitality. Like you giving all of you away every time, because to the mind, you creating the third life. To the mind don't know that's your hand. The mind, every time you have a release, the mind thinking that's coming from another human being, and you have just done what it takes to create another human being. That the two humans have now made a third, and all of you has been released.
Yep.
So that also affects your attention span. And when you think everybody's talking about, oh, the attention span is 7 minutes, the average attention span is 7 minutes. Then they said 5, then they said 3.
Come on.
Why is our attention span so short? when we build Boeing 747s and skyscrapers? How can we have a 3-minute attention span when we have built this entire world around us?
Yeah.
But it's because of us always releasing
Yeah.
our energy and vitality into futility, if that's
Yeah.
even a word.
Yep. Yep. Hey, that's why you have the 85 to 90%, and that's why you have the 10% and the 1%. Some people are able to focus and sacrifice and discipline themselves in other areas where most people aren't. And I'll close with this because I think it's important. I want to share a story, but also want to encourage both men and women to pursue purpose. But um, my name is Caleb. The meaning of my name biblically, Caleb and Joshua were two of the spies that went to the promised land to be able to see something different, to get an experience, to see that this land is what God has for us, but there's going to be some things we got to overcome. While amongst the crowd, and they went back to talk to the people, everybody else was against them, saying that no, we cannot do this. Like the giants are big, it's too hard to overcome. There's no way we can do this. But Caleb and Joshua moved forward and say, yes, you can. I'm moving in my purpose now, right? And I was able to meet you in 2017 at age of 23. That's whenever we connected. And through my 20s, as I look back over my life and my purpose, like it was meant for us to have this connection, like you said. It was meant for me to be able to attach myself to an older version of myself and seeing where God was going to take me. I didn't understand the fullness of what all God was going to call me to do, but to see it now and to understand that men and women, you got to attach yourselves to your purpose. You got to get back to God. You got to find somebody that you can submit to. First, submit to God so you can really understand submission. In my fine tuning phase in my 20s, there was a moment where you and I had a conversation one night. And I got a little too much in my ego. I fell away from God and I allowed the ego to take over and I edged God out. And you and I went back and forth in a conversation, just being man to boyishness, right? And you were calling something out of me that I did not want to hear and receive at that time. At the end of the night, whenever God dealt with me, I called you on the phone. I said, Tony, bro, I just want to apologize to you because I fell out of submission. I fell out of alignment with God and I got full of myself. And I fell out of being able to hear from you and glean and get the wisdom and the nutrients that God is trying to pour into my life because I was a moving ahead of my time and moving ahead of my schedule, right? To think now, 7 years later, where we are on this journey and to be able to be on this podcast because I was able to take your tutelage, because I submitted myself unto God and I went through the ebbs and flows and purification of understanding what my purpose is. I can only stand and be here now today on this camera, you know? So I'm saying all that to say, men and women, please pursue purpose. Put God first. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Whenever you start to put purpose first in your life, everything will change. You have a lasting peace and joy, and you become fruitful in your life. I'm in such a place in my life right now as a single man. I'm full of peace. I don't even crave the attention of women no more. If I meet a woman, great, but I am genuinely, I mean this, I'm genuinely happy and at peace with the phase of my life because my plate is full and my purpose is what is propelling me, not pleasure. So I want to encourage you to just pause and think about your life. What is your purpose? Not the work that you wake up and do 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. Why was your soul placed here on earth in the body that God has given you? Have you been putting more time, effort, and energy into your body, or have you poured into your soul? So I just want to leave you all with that to pursue purpose. If men, if we can get back to purpose, we can lead our women and the world will align. That is the biggest form of abuse in our lives is pleasure. If men could get back to purpose, everything would change. I promise. And I'll just leave with that because I don't want to go on another tangent. But yeah, purpose, man.
Hey, we will have a part 2 on this, and I'm gonna share this one with a little more vigor because I feel like this will set a lot of captives free because we've all been held captive to the lies and the deceit of the world that keeps us reactive instead of proactive. And so when we are slaves to our flesh, that also makes us more reckless consumers. And there's a reason why sex sells, because sex also controls. And that is the prince of the air. That's his goal, to trap us, to deceive us, and to have us as his slaves. So if we are sold out to sexual immorality, then we are easily led and controlled by those forces. But like you said, when we sell out to our purpose, when we sold on our purpose and we are committed to purpose, then everything else flows. And I'm hoping that we can have more conversations like this, just between friends and family and just all over the world, of where two people can sit down and they can challenge each other and hold each other accountable and go to the next level. Because although you 10 years younger than me, I've learned a lot from you, and you've been a blessing to me in the sense of just me being able to see and understand, because the Lord showing me like, look, this is where a mind could be at 30. Now think about, if you stay focused, where that mind can go, where that purpose can go. What can, if you see what you can do, Tony, imagine what also Caleb can do. But then imagine what the conversations, the ripple effect these conversations create, to where now imagine 100 men, 1,000 men, 10,000 men, 100,000 men, all pursuing purpose. What's
Yes.
going to happen in the world? So, hey, praying for us and everybody else out there, that we can stay focused, stay aligned, stay intentional and purposeful. And God bless y'all. Thank y'all for joining us. Caleb, what they need to do to keep up with us?
Follow us on Instagram at Louder Than Words Show. If you want to send us an email, the email is louderthanwords@gmail.com. And yeah, I think that's the basics of it for now. So we appreciate y'all for tuning in. We'll be back with another episode soon. Peace.
Awesome.